Press the bell icon and never miss an update from ETAuto.
Automotive industry is standing at a crossroad where we are going to take a mega technology and an emission norm leap. We are also talking about at least 30% electrification by 2030. And in this giant leap, ARAI, Automotive Research Association, is going to play a very important role. We have here with us Rashmi Urdhwareshe, Director of ARAI, to talk about the preparedness for industry and the testing agency in this direction. Welcome to ETAuto. As I mentioned, auto industry is ready for a mega leap when it comes to BS6 implementation as well as electrification. How the industry is ready, and do you think you have enough capacity to test those kind of changes that are going to happen?
We have anticipated this. In fact, there's the advantage of ARAI working very closely with the Government of India in setting up regulations as well as setting up the facilities. Last 5 years almost, we have been engaged into expanding our capabilities as well as creating additional capacity to handle this workload. You mentioned about BS6, you also mentioned about electrification. The third dimension is crash regulations. That puts a third dimension, and the fourth one obviously is fuel efficiency regulations that are coming in. So all put together, there is a comprehensive development which is happening in the industry. We are gearing up by way of creating new teams with new skill sets as are required for the development, because compliance comes much later as the initial development stages with which we work closely with the industry. So that is currently what is happening. Come 20 April, every vehicle manufacturer is required to produce and sell only BS6 products. So moving ahead on the curve, we are working closely with development of after treatment, working on testing validation, and also engaged into simulation based evaluation.
So we have a very short time to transit to BS6. It's a big challenge, if I can say that. How are you collaborating with the industry, and do you think it will be achievable task BS6? We are not going BS5. It is first time any of the market that has adopted BS6 directly from BS4. You have a huge task ahead.
Yes, the question doesn't remain anymore that whether we can do it. We have to do it. How we do it, I think, is individual company strategies. What I have seen is the industry will phase it in such a manner that they will position their products in the years to come. So the development cycle takes care of the basic platforms and then cover the entire volumes of their portfolio. That is what is happening. There's a lot of commonalization of platforms, use of standard engines, use of power train concepts. Also industry is keeping an eye on electrification program at the same time. So that's how I think the industry will be able to cope up with it.
Is ARAI looking at the work pressure that is going to come to you, because you are a nodal agency when it comes to validation and testing? So are you adding new capacities? How the work is on in this direction for BS6 and EV as well, and crash norm that we are going to adopt?
We always had 24 hours in a day, so that continues. Obviously the scaling up will happen as the deadline comes. As always, for every deadline, it happened in BS4. The transition is always a tough challenge. ARAI is strong enough to handle that challenge. Also, as you may be aware, that we have set up another center at near the industry. So that has enabled us to double our capacity, in fact, in emission testing and certification. So with that workload, I think we will be comfortable as we approach the deadline. Also, we are phasing it in such a manner that nobody is left without any testing slot. So we are ensuring that.
Have you seen interest from the manufacturer's side to get into battery assembly, or have you seen some kind of excitement around manufacturers to speed up electrification or bring electric product?
They are announcing their plans. I think the speed will depend on how fast the infrastructure develops for charging, how fast also the consumer accepts electric vehicles. Products are getting ready. I mean, technology is available elsewhere in the world as well. To develop in the country, it will take time, but solutions can always be made available to Indian consumer. So that's where the electrification programs lie at this moment.
So ARAI is probably the starting point for any transition or any product launch. Looking at the interest of the OEMs, can you say that 30% by 2030 electrification, do you think it is an achievable target, or what is your thought on that?
As the ministers at multiple fora had said, numbers are just indicative. So that clearly indicates the direction in which government wants the industry to grow. These are the target numbers. Whether industry would achieve it by choice or through regulations, I have no authority to talk on that. As far as the technology is concerned, and as far as ARAI is concerned, I am confident about the ecosystem by way of regulations, by way of testing, and by way of also development of components as well as the complete vehicle aggregates. If the serious development of electric mobility has to take place, I think not just ARAI as a testing house, but all the stakeholders in terms of material development, recyclability, or even up to the level of skilling people to handle such a different powertrain has to be done before we migrate to 30% or even that numbers.
So you are still not giving me a straight answer. But you think it is possible, or you think we can reach closer to it, or you think it's still a huge number?
It's entirely a huge number. The sheer size of Indian market is, being questioned. 30% of the total number is a very large figure. So from that point of view, I think it's a difficult number to achieve. Penetration is not governed by the technology that is required to go. Penetration is market acceptability and also the infrastructure, as I mentioned earlier. So these will govern finally the numbers.
So coming back to the chicken and egg story that we are talking about when it comes to electrification, where do you see the missing links? Because I see a lot of government officials claiming that it's mostly that the manufacturers are not ready. We hardly have any component manufacturer in EVS space, and when we talk to the manufacturers, they say that we don't have a definitive policy. How do we make those kind of investment? We are ready, we have technology, everything. So how can we solve this problem?
You yourself said chicken and egg, so that is in fact the situation. I think what we can look at is establish one or two success stories in this space. It could be at the city level, it could be just a public infrastructure or public transportation going electric. That could be a success story. Once we do it, I think scaling up a pan India would be a feasible task. So, as far as ARAI is concerned, we are therefore talking to the state governments in creating a possibility of such stories. We can fill in that gap which is lying, how to do it. We become therefore a technical partner in such endeavors to make it happen. To consider the entire country is beyond our reach at this moment, but we can make our impact at least a couple of success stories.
So this entire, when it comes to BS6 or electrification, this drive is mainly focused towards having a cleaner environment. We want to reduce CO2 emission. We are talking about EV, we are talking about BS6. One very pertinent area which we are still missing is scrappage policy. We can bring in new fleet which are BS6, but what happens to the fleet which are BS3 and emitting higher CO2? Their condition is not so well. So why government is not, or ARAI is not taking some very definitive strong steps in this direction at the national level?
From ARAI side, we had prepared a base paper submitted to government about a couple of years ago in this direction. We also worked on what should be the technical requirement if such a scrappage happens by giving RRR targets to the manufacturer, as well as recovery to be done in a eco-friendly manner. So there is a technical requirement, then there is an administrative requirement, and there obviously is a fiscal incentive through which such schemes become successful. So all that put together, a white paper is submitted to government. I think based on all these inputs collected, there is already a very serious thought to it. To my information, government is very seriously looking into the fiscal incentive part of it. Rest all technical content has been already agreed between interministerial consultation. So that's where it at this moment stands. And as far as vehicle approval, which is a part of RRR requirements is concerned, technically it has been already cleared by my technical committee. So
how far are we from having any such policy coming into action?
I think the question is more relevant for the ministry to answer. We are also eagerly waiting, because our ambient air quality measurements also indicate that unless we have one-time cleaning up or a continual basis through which inspection and maintenance certification helps in weeding out highly polluting vehicles. So these are the directions which we from ARAI side also are keen to work on. But we need a policy framework and need a regulatory framework.
Oh, a bit different question. When we talk about electrification of fleet in India, people talk about low-hanging fruits to be caught up first. Like some people say two-wheelers, some people say commercial vehicles like buses and trucks. You are the agency where people send their vehicles for testing and validation before they roll out. Assessing the amount of vehicles coming up from various segment, what will you say? Which segment is going to see highest electric penetration?
Buses, definitely, and if the government is keen, we are developing technologies on the three-wheeler segment. That's another possible, success story which we can build for crowded cities, where bigger buses are not actually the solution. So converting existing fleets into electric vehicles, or replacing the fleet with new electric three-wheelers. In my view, that will give a much more impact and create a need for electrification. In why I'm saying is the infrastructure development on both these sectors is relatively under control. For private personalized mobility, depending on the government to set up infrastructure will take a little longer, and that's a lower priority. And so the low hanging fruits are these two segments.
Bus and three-wheeler. We have seen in China there has been strong penetration in two-wheeler when it comes to electrification. You don't see the similar case in India. What is the reason?
The cost differential doesn't justify it for Indian market. So Indian consumer prefers a performing bike. So as you go higher up, the cost also increases. So from that point of view, I think two-wheeler segment still continues to be dominated by conventional petrols.
So India was to adopt NCAP kind of norm in India. How is that progressing?
The technical requirements of NCAP, all the manufacturers are aware, test agencies are capable of doing the testing here. What currently is required to be done is identify an independent agency which can administer this type of scheme in the interest of consumer. So this goes beyond regulations. Therefore, test agency like ARAI will independently not enter into that segment at all. We can work closely with an independent body where they offer us the selected vehicles. We will do the testing and we will give the evaluation report. So that's where ARAI's position is.
Thank you so much for talking to ETAuto. Thank you.